Nick is in for Marni from Chicago. Hi, Nick.
Leland, good morning. I'm Nick Smith in Chicago for Marni Hughes. A lot of news to get to this morning. It's time for NewsNation Live. Happening today, Hunter Biden's trial on federal firearms charges kicking off with jury selection. We'll give you an inside look at the president's son's legal battles. Plus, fireworks expected at Dr. Anthony Fauci's congressional hearing, how he thinks the COVID-19 pandemic really spread, and voters reacting to former President Trump's guilty verdict. The percentage of Republicans who say they're less likely to vote for him now that he's a convicted felon. Also, millions impacted by a massive Ticketmaster data breach, the hacking group behind the attack, and their plans with all that sensitive information. Good morning. From NewsNation in Chicago, I'm Nick Smith in for Marni Hughes. Right now, jury selection is underway in the first criminal trial of a sitting president's son. Here's a live look outside the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware, where Hunter Biden is currently inside. Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty to all 3 federal charges. He's accused of lying about his drug use on forms used to purchase the gun and owning a firearm while abusing drugs. If convicted, he could face 25 years behind bars. NewsNation's Joe Khalil is live outside the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe, Hunter Biden is the first child of a U.S. president to go on trial. What can we expect this morning?
I mean, it is unprecedented. Nick, you talk about the nature of this, the history that is being made here today. We have not seen this before. The son of the current president going to be facing a trial today, prosecuted by the Justice Department under President Biden. That is something that we have not seen. And you put yourself in the shoes of potential jurors today. When they go into that courtroom, which is happening right now, this is now underway, jury selection here, they are going to feel as though the mechanics of this may look like a normal trial. We've got our hands on some of the questions that Judge Mary Ellen Noreika is going to be asking potential jurors, and some of them may feel like routine gun charge questions. But then at the end of that list, she's going to be asking a series of questions that sound like this. Do you think the son of a sitting president is going to be prosecuted simply because his father is president? Do you think the son of the president committed other crimes he is not being prosecuted for simply because he is the son of a president? So right away, the potential jurors are going to be feeling as if this is not a normal trial, and they're going to be thrown into what is going to be a historic moment. Now, you mentioned at the top, we did see Jill Biden, the First Lady, go in today. She is going to be supporting her son Hunter, as well as Ashley Biden, his sister, in the courthouse today. So there are a number of Biden family members that will be there today. We were wondering whether President Biden was going to be making a trip here to the courthouse as well. Our sources say that is unlikely at this point, although we should point out that President Biden spent virtually the entire weekend with Hunter. We saw Hunter ourselves at the White House on Friday. The two were together on Saturday in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And then last night, President Biden made an unplanned flight into Wilmington. So the family has been virtually together through the weekend. We know that President Biden is taking this very seriously. What type of political ramifications we have from this trial, we don't know yet, as President Biden's in the heat of his campaign, Nick. But what we can tell you is that as this trial progresses, there could be some very personal, very salacious details from Hunter Biden's life and from his drug addiction that he's been very public with on display for the public at this trial. So you are going to see that type of thing come out in the next couple of days. And certainly whether it takes a political toll, we will find out, but it may take an emotional one on the commander-in-chief.
Joe, it may sound like a crazy question to ask, but do you expect Mr. Biden, the president, to actually show up at some point to this trial?
Again, our sources tell us that it's not likely today. It's not on the schedule. But again, he has been at his son's side through the weekend. We imagine that there is a strong show of support there. Whether he comes to the courthouse, again, we don't know. It may be unlikely. We can tell you that the security presence here would have to beef up significantly for a sitting president to come into the courthouse and be sitting in a courtroom alongside his son. But again, there is quite a bit of Secret Service detail here already, given the fact that you've got the First Lady and two of the president's children now inside that courtroom.
Joel Khalil live outside the federal building in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe, thank you so much. Let's bring in trial attorney John Fishwick. He's also the former U.S. attorney for the Western District of Virginia. John, good morning.
Morning, Nick.
This is a high-profile case with the potential to get political. What does the process of jury selection actually look like for something like this? Did we get a preview of that possibly with Mr. Trump's criminal trial?
Yes, but Nick, this is in federal court, and jury selection in federal court is a little more streamlined. And the state court case with the former president, it took the better part of a week. I would expect this jury selection might get wrapped up today. The parties, both the defense and the prosecution, have agreed on some written questions, some of which was read there in the intro, dealing a little bit with the politics, but they'll also ask folks about drug addiction and drug usage and gun possession and those sorts of things. And then after the written questions, then both the government and the defense will strike the jurors that they think are not going to be favorable for their side. But I think it'll be more streamlined. I would expect we'll get a jury by the end of the day or maybe by tomorrow morning.
Would you want someone, you talk about this jury and striking potential jurors, would you want a juror that may have possibly had a drug issue or be in recovery in their past?
Well, that's a tricky question for each side to figure out, Nick, but probably the defense is wanting folks who are sympathetic to drug addiction. I think one of the defense of Hunter Biden is going to be, hey, I had just completed a drug rehab program back in 2018 when I bought this .38 revolver. I thought I was on the road to recovery, so they want folks that are sympathetic to that. The prosecution wants folks who are going to say, hey, look, this is a form. You got to fill it out honestly. You knew you were on drugs. You knew you were addicted to crack cocaine at the time. You lied. Therefore, you're guilty.
John, President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden have been vocal about their support for Hunter. And Dr. Biden is even at the courthouse right now. Could this have an influence on the jury? As a potential juror, I see the First Lady there. Am I swayed by this?
Well, Nick, in most criminal cases, it's always good to have your family there if you're a criminal defendant. After all, he's a criminal defendant facing 3 felony charges brought by DOJ. It's been my experience, though, that jurors take an oath to follow the law and the evidence. And by the end of the case, by the time the case is concluded, maybe later this week or early next week, they've put aside who's in the courtroom. They're focused on the law and the evidence. It might have a little bit of a wow moment for them this morning when they're picking the jury. But as the case progresses, they'll put that out of their minds.
John, I've got less than a minute here. One more question for you. This trial will be focused on a difficult time for the Biden family. Do you think the prosecution will focus on the more salacious details around this period of Hunter's life? The ex-wife, the current wife, the details that caused them to get together. What is a winning strategy?
Yeah, I think the DOJ is going to zoom right in on that. It will be salacious. After all, he was dating Hallie Biden, the widow of Beau Biden at the time. She discovered the gun and turned it into law enforcement back in October of 2018. He wrote in his memoir that he was using crack every 15 minutes. So it is going to focus in on those salacious details of who he was seeing and what drugs he was using. But they'll use his own words. He wrote in his memoir, I was using drugs a lot, using crack a lot. They'll focus in on that. They have to prove that around the time that he filled out this form, that he lied, that he was a drug user and a drug addict.
And last question. We know that Hunter has faced a lot of criticism from Republicans accusing him of influence peddling and corruption. Do you foresee this also playing a role in this trial?
I don't think so, Nick. This case is going to be focused on those forms and buying that .38 revolver in 2018. Did he lie? Was he on drugs at the time? And did he lie when he filled out that form? And then when he possessed the gun, was he on drugs?
John Fishwick, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
In just a matter of minutes, Dr. Anthony Fauci will testify in front of a congressional committee. He will face grilling on the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're expecting fireworks from this hearing. News Nation's Emily Finn is with us now. Emily, what can we expect Dr. Fauci to say once again as he actually speaks before the crowd?
Well, Nick, right now, Dr. Anthony Fauci is on Capitol Hill getting ready to testify in front of a congressional committee. Emails between the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and his senior advisors about evading public records laws are also expected to be a key point of questioning during today's testimony. Those emails allegedly point to misconduct and suggest Fauci was aware of the wrongdoing and even tried to distance himself from it. In an opinion piece appearing in the New York Post, Adam Andrzejewski, CEO of OpenTheBooks.com, reports that data from the National Institutes of Health show $710 million in royalty payments during the pandemic made by private medical and pharmaceutical companies. That's more than double the cash compared to the past 12 years combined, and likely will come up in questioning as well. Republicans and Democrats on the subcommittee questioning Fauci are expected to take different approaches with their lines of questioning when trying to get some answers today. For the Democrats, they will likely focus on the lessons learned from an unprecedented pandemic.
It's been heartening to hear such an important public servant like Dr. Fauci, who has advised Americans and policymakers like us for decades, kind of go back over some of the lessons learned coming out of the pandemic.
NewsNation spoke with Ohio Republican Congressman and chairman of the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, Brad Wenstrup, who says that he believes the public health system was, quote, greatly diminished after Fauci's time at the NIAID.
And it's interesting that he said everything was based on science, because during his transcribed interview, when we asked him where the 6 feet of distancing came from, he said it just sort of appeared. Well, that doesn't sound like science. We asked him if there was science behind the masking, and he said, no, not really. And especially when it came to children, there wasn't any science behind it. There are so many things that took place that aren't related to science, or if they are related to science, he ignored them.
Once the public face of the pandemic, today's hearing marks Fauci's first congressional testimony in nearly 2 years. He's been hesitant to speak publicly, avoiding interviews since he left the NIAID in 2022. So it's fair to say all eyes are going to be on this trial now.
Absolutely. Emily, it's amazing how the fallout behind the COVID reaction continues. Emily Finn, thank you so much. Well, NewsNation will be tracking the latest on Fauci's congressional testimony all morning long. And coming up, President Biden planning to sign an executive order on the border tomorrow. The action he's taking amid the surge in immigration. Plus, new trouble for Ticketmaster, a massive data breach putting customers at risk. Their private information now being sold on the dark web. We have details. And right after the break, the historic conviction of former President Trump, making waves on all sides. How campaigns are navigating the guilty verdict as we await sentencing.
Annika, ich habe die Bombe gefunden.
Okay, Johann. Das sollte ein blauer und gelber Draht sein.
Da ist ein blauer Draht mit gelben Streifen und ein gelber Draht mit blauen Streifen.
Schneid den blauen durch.
Ja, der eine ist überwiegend blau mit gelben Streifen, der andere ist gelb, außer an Stellen an den blauen Streifen zu sehen sind. Aber technisch gesehen ist der immer noch blau.
Sind die blauen Streifen genauso breit wie die gelben?
Ich schneide weiter, dreht ihr durch.
Vision works. See the difference.
This bathroom's so musty.
Damprid's new fast-acting drop-in tab attracts and traps excess moisture, eliminating musty odors.
Nice to meet you. My name is David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years. When I have customers come in and ask for something for memory, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's safe and effective, does not require a prescription. And I've been taking it quite a while myself, and I know it works. And I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really works so good for me. Makes my day.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Mom jeans. She passed them down to you. But who passed them to her? Those mom jeans are a big part of you. Ancestry DNA can show you the people and places they came from. Discover the traits you inherited, the places where they started, and the people you share them with. Your genes are one of a kind. Find out why with Ancestry DNA.
We have a deal. Thanks, everyone.
Can you imagine if it was 1 million instead of 1 billion?
We'd be so fired.
No. Check the otter notes.
Oh. Ah, yes. Multiple meetings say billion with a B. We've got this.
Otter, you got this.
Welcome to the Waiverhood. With Wayfair, finding your style is fun.
Again, when the music stops, grab any chair. Doesn't matter if it's your outdoor style or not.
I'm sorry, Carl. This is me in chair form.
I don't see it.
Oh, come on. This one's perfect for you. But you love it.
I told you we should have done a piñata.
I explained it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sitting. You need to sit down. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hi, I'm Daniel, the founder of Pretty Litter. By working with scientists and veterinarians, I was able to develop a long-lasting litter with advanced odor control, low dust, and most importantly, color-changing technology. So give it a try. Visit prettylitter.com today.
NewsNation tonight on Balance. The one and only Bill O'Reilly weighs in on the historic verdict. What comes next, and what are most of the national media getting wrong? O'Reilly breaks it down with Leland on Balance. Tonight, only on NewsNation.
A new Reuters Ipsos poll reveals how Republican voters really feel about former President Trump's conviction. It shows that 10% of Republican voters are less likely to vote for Donald Trump following his felony conviction. 56% said it had no impact. 35% said they were more likely to vote for Mr. Trump. Last week, a jury in New York City found the former president guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump's team is planning to appeal. On Friday, his campaign released an ad showing President Biden's response when asked how he felt about Mr. Trump calling himself a political prisoner.
This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir?
President Biden has said Trump should appeal the verdict just like everyone else has the right to do. But he also said it's dangerous to say it was rigged just because Mr. Trump didn't like the verdict. Joining me now is Michael Schnell, congressional reporter for TheHill.com. Michael, that's my first time having seen that ad. I can only imagine the impact or the shock that some people may have seen it for the first time. How much will the conviction dominate both the Trump and Biden campaign messages compared to maybe policy issues?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to dominate to a certain extent, Nick. Look, we're already seeing the Biden campaign we're already seeing the Biden campaign sort of talk about this, highlight the fact that Trump is now a convicted felon. We're, of course, already seeing the Trump campaign note this as well. You noted that the Trump campaign had cut that ad. There also the former president just himself taking to a microphone to rail against these charges. So I think that just by virtue of how historic and explosive they are, we are still going to see them dominate both campaigns on the campaign trail. But I also think that we're going to see both Trump and Biden and their campaigns try to focus on these kitchen table issues and these other matters that really are top of mind to voters in the lead up to November. One of those being the border and immigration. We've seen poll after poll show that that is top of mind to voters. They are most concerned about the situation at the southern border. That's something that Republicans really have a leg up on. They are better at messaging on the border. They've seen success in that realm. I suspect they will continue to run with that message. And then the other side of the aisle, you have Democrats who are going to want to lean into the matter of abortion. We saw in 2022 the overturning of Roe v. Wade really put wind behind the backs of Democrats, letting them have better than expected returns during those midterm elections. Democrats are hoping that this time again, this cycle, if they lean in on the issue of abortion, it will help them. So I think it's going to be multifaceted, Nick. As we've seen poll after poll show that this race is just so close, both campaigns are going to try to employ any tactics to win over voters, and that's going to include messaging the Trump conviction in their favor while also focusing on these other issues that are really important to voters.
Michael, it also seems as though Mr. Biden has been hesitant or reluctant to really play into the aggressive tone that so many on the far left have encouraged or implored him to take when talking about Mr. Trump and his conviction.
Yeah, well, I think that this is because if you look at some of the Republican arguments, they're saying that Alvin Bragg had campaigned on this mission to convict the president. They've called this a politicized process that led to the 34 guilty charges, of course, by a 12-person jury. That jury came to its own conclusion, a jury of Trump's peers. But nonetheless, these are the Republican attacks. So if President Biden went strongly on the offensive, particularly at the White House himself and not his campaign, if he really leaned in on these charges, it could just fuel those claims among Republicans that this was politicized and that Democrats are seething at the fact that Trump is now a convicted felon. So I think that he's trying to have more of a measured approach himself personally from the official position and then let the campaign lean in on it as it needs to.
Michael, I know in 2020 we had record voter turnout and so many people voted down ballot different ways than they did for the guy at the top, either Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump. Could the verdict impact other Democrats or Republicans who are also on the ballot for 2024?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about voter turnout, I think it can have effect on both sides. We see a number of Republicans who are extremely galvanized about this decision. They're upset about it. They're mad about it. They want to make their voices heard. We're already hearing Republican lawmakers say the real decision is made in November. Everyone has to get out to vote to make their voice be heard. That's on the Republican side. And the Democrat side, they are outraged at the fact that somebody who was running for president, someone who they had already were not in favor of, is now a convicted felon. So that could galvanize more Democrats to head to the polls to cast a vote for Joe Biden to try to deny Trump the White House. Now, those are just in terms of voter turnout, but it's also something that I've been keeping an eye on when you talk about how this could affect down ballot races, is that there's a small contingent of vulnerable House Republicans. It's about 8 of them who hail from districts President Biden won back in 2020, who haven't even commented on these charges yet, on this conviction yet, Nick. And I reached out to their offices. Nobody has responded to comment because it's such a complicated balancing act for them, because we see that, you know, they have bluer districts, so they don't want to turn off constituents if they go out and criticize the conviction. But also, as we've seen in the Republican Party, we saw with Larry Hogan being excoriated for saying that the decision, that the verdict should be respected. Republicans are nervous to step out of line with the former president. So now we're seeing some vulnerable Republicans have that balancing act. I'm interested to see how those who are called Biden district Republicans react to this conviction, because how it does could really have an effect on the November election.
Michael, I've got about a minute and a half left. So many more questions for you there. One of the things you just talked about, how this razor-thin margin of voters who are out there, they're both vying for. Many of the comments this weekend have also been about the success Republicans feel this conviction with Mr. Trump may have in wooing black voters. Can you talk about that, how they believe that African Americans may be turned on by the fact that Mr. Trump is a convicted felon?
Yeah, so of course, African American voters is a large contingency when you talk about the road to securing enough electoral college votes and you know, getting enough support to win the White House. Now, this was a contingency that President Biden had a pretty strong support from back in 2020. There are questions now if that support still remains this time around. So we see both campaigns, both Biden's campaign and Trump's campaign, trying to make inroads on that, again, very important voter contingency, especially former President Trump now trying to make some inroads there and secure those voters, because there's some questions about whether President Biden still has a strong grip on that voter bloc, but also because this election is just, again, it's just so close. And, you know, that poll that you showed before, 10% of voters potentially turned off by Trump in the wake of the conviction. That may sound like a small number, Nick, but when we're talking about how close this election could be based on the polls, right now it's single-digit difference. 10% swing is massive. So if there are small pockets of support that each campaign can flip from the other as we get into the lead up to November, that could be a game changer. And it's clear that both campaigns see African-American voters as one of those contingencies that they can help secure to increase their path to
Michael, particularly
to
when we saw a couple of states in 2020, won by just a few 100,000 votes. Last question for you, Michael. Democratic Congressman from Minnesota, Dean Phillips, is calling on New York Governor Kathy Hochul to pardon Mr. Trump. What's the likelihood of that happening?
I think it's a very small likelihood. Kathy Hochul had issued a statement saying that, you know, the jury had done a job here, that the justice system worked. I don't see it likely this would happen. It's, of course, an interesting dynamic because folks have said, well, you know, could Trump pardon himself if he gets back into the White House? No, because this was a state case. It was not a federal case. I don't see Kathy Hochul doing this. Dean Phillips, oftentimes the first out of the gate to make these controversial calls, unlikely call, you know, just calls that are sort of out of the blue. He has also done others. So I don't see this. I don't particularly see this happening.
Well, Michael, you and I have about, 157 days or so before the election. I have every reason to believe we will be discussing all of this again. Michael Schnell, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick.
Former President Donald Trump is on TikTok. He made his debut on the app over the weekend, posting this video of him at the UFC event in New Jersey Saturday night.
The president is now on TikTok. It's my honor.
As Mr. Trump with UFC President Dana White, the president tried to ban TikTok back in 2020, but a court blocked his executive order. He then seemed to support TikTok earlier this year. In April, Congress and President Joe Biden passed a bill that would ban TikTok if China's government does not divest from TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, by January. Well, coming up, President Biden gearing up to sign an executive order to tackle the crisis at the southern border. The action he's taking next.
Reagan, Portrait of a Presidency, Saturday, 9, 8 Central on NewsNation.
This bathroom's so musty.
Danford's new fast-acting drop-in tab attracts and traps excess moisture, eliminating musty odors.
Right now, pet dander, skin cells, mold spores, pollen, and dirt are being sucked into your air ducts. Get cleaner air and system efficiency now with Stanley Steamer. Your air ducts aren't clean until they're Stanley Steamer clean.
Stanley Steamer gets your home cleaner.
Hi, I'm Kevin, and I've lost 152 pounds on Golo. I decided to give Golo a try. Taking the release supplement, I noticed a change within the first week. And each month, the weight just kept coming off. With Golo, you can keep the weight off.
Remember when I said we need a screen for colon cancer?
Was that after I texted the age to screen was now 45? Because I said Cologuard.
Hey there.
Where did he come from?
Yep, with me, you can screen at home. Just talk to your provider. We'll screen with Cologuard and do it my way.
Cologuard is a one-of-a-kind way to screen for colon cancer that's effective and non-invasive. It's for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk. False positive and negative results may occur.
Ask your provider for me, Cologuard.
We get it. Learning something new is hard, especially a new language. So make it easy on yourself with Babbel, the language learning app that teaches real-world conversation for any situation. Babbel is more than vocab memorization. It teaches practical phrases you'll actually use. Say auf Wiedersehen to I give up, au revoir to it's too hard, and hola to real conversations with real people in a new language. Ready to find your follow-through? Get Babbel. It starts here. Start learning today at Babbel.com.
When migraine strikes, you're faced with a choice. Accept the trade-offs of treating, or push through the pain and symptoms. With Ubrelvy, there's another option. One dose quickly stops migraine in its tracks. Treat it anytime, anywhere, without worrying where you are or if it's too late. Do not take with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Allergic reactions to Ubrelvy can happen. Most common side effects were nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Ask about Ubrelvy. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
If you spit blood when you brush, it could be the start of a domino effect. New Parodontics Active Gum Repair Breath Freshener. Clinically proven to help reverse the 4 signs of early gum disease. A new toothpaste from Parodontics, the gum experts.
Victims of mesothelioma and their families may be entitled to receive a cash award from the estimated $30 billion in asbestos trust funds now available. Over $50 billion has been awarded already. If you have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer caused by asbestos, call the number on your screen now. We have served victims of mesothelioma and their families nationwide for over 30 years. We have successfully recovered hundreds of millions of dollars for thousands of our clients. Even if a family member has passed due to mesothelioma, you may still be entitled to a cash award. So call now for your free evaluation. We want to help victims of mesothelioma and lung cancer, and your families get the financial compensation you deserve from the estimated $30 billion in trust funds now available. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, call 1-800-878-1692 now or visit us at mesofund.com.
Welcome back to NewsNation Live, 28 minutes after the hour. Right now, we are awaiting congressional testimony from Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci will be in the hot seat in front of a Republican-led House committee to discuss the origins of the coronavirus. We expect this testimony could get heated, especially when it comes to things like mask mandates, shutdowns, social distancing, and what the U.S. government knew about the origins of the virus. We will be monitoring Dr. Fauci's testimony and keep you up to speed as it happens. And President Biden is set to sign an executive order tomorrow, giving him the power to, quote, shut down the U.S.-Mexico border. The executive action is expected to restrict asylum claims on the southern border, potentially capping crossing at 4,000 per day. But it's a plan that Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson says is too little, too late. NewsNation's Kelly Meyer is live from Washington, D.C. Kelly, the White House reaching out to border town leaders, but others say they're being left in the dark. And this morning, as you were talking with Leland, some of whom are being most affected, were not invited to this meeting.
Exactly. We were talking about it's just as important who wasn't invited as who is invited. So our sources are telling us that this is happening tomorrow in Washington, D.C. We know mayors in border towns were contacted by the White House and asked to join the president for this announcement. Border mayors in Brownsville and Edinburgh, Texas, say they were invited. But the list of, as we said, who isn't invited, just as important as who was. Our Allie Bradley learning the mayor of El Cajon in the San Diego area has not been contacted. He's been vocal recently on the issues at the border. And the mayor of Sierra Vista in Arizona also told Allie that no one reached out and that he would have loved to speak with President Biden about the experience in southern Arizona. He says perhaps the president didn't like his letter that he and the coalition of Cochise County mayors sent to his office asking that the president do something. And to note, the Democratic mayor of Eagle Pass, Texas, had not received an invitation as of Sunday. So the decision leaves some of the communities hit hardest by the border crisis out in the cold. According to the latest data from April, San Diego saw the most migrant apprehensions, accounting for more than 20% of all southern border apprehensions that month, followed by Tucson and then Laredo. So President Biden is weighing automatically denying entry to migrants once the number of encounters exceed a new daily threshold. He's also weighing shutting off asylum requests. This executive order announcement expected again to happen tomorrow, though the White House has not confirmed that. They have only been saying to us that they have always kept their options open, but no final decisions have been made, telling us, quote, from day one, the administration has always evaluated what actions could be taken. There haven't been any final decisions regarding what additional executive actions, if any, could be taken. So if the president does this, the immediate question is going to be, why now? Why not do this sooner, especially from those on the other side of the aisle? The White House continued to say when we asked that they needed Congress to act and blamed former President Trump for tanking that bipartisan border deal earlier this year. House Speaker Mike Johnson calls the bill too little, or the executive action rather, too little, too late. But here's Nancy Mace on the Hill Sunday. Take a listen.
But the devil is always in the details. Like that Senate bill that came through, there were a lot of great ideas, as I have said over and over again. But for every good idea, there was a loophole on the next page that basically meant nothing. And so I would want to make sure that we're building the wall, that we are limiting and banning these people from coming across the border illegally. Look, over 9 million illegals have crossed in our country.
That was Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina. So another point, Mexico just elected a new president yesterday. So I asked a reporter on the ground there if the president, our president, was waiting until after that to make his move here with the executive order. Reporter told me that yes. So the timing of all this is really interesting as well, Nick.
Kelly, and it seems as though Mr. Biden is trying to play whack-a-mole, one issue here, one issue there, and still that crisis border, the border of the crisis continues. Kelly Meyer, live in Washington for us this morning. Kelly, thank you. Several universities around the country are choosing discipline over degrees after weeks of pro-Palestinian protests on their campuses. Some students aren't getting their diplomas because they participated in those demonstrations. And right now, some of the college protests encampments are back. Although many of the demonstrations were peaceful, police have arrested hundreds of students across the country. Our News Nation Kelsey Kirstein is live from the University of Chicago. And Kelsey, that school actually withheld the diplomas of students this weekend over their involvement with a pro-Palestinian encampment.
Yeah, hey there, Nick. Good morning. So I can tell you that the University of Chicago here, that they essentially suspended four of those diplomas of graduating seniors. And basically what they're saying is they have to complete an investigation, a disciplinary investigation before they can give those diplomas to those seniors. Now, here's the thing. You got to take a look at this. This is one of those seniors who did not get his diploma. University officials saying disruptive conduct would require further review. You can see him here throwing his robe down to the ground, along with his earned Odyssey Scholar medal, and calling it a pointless punishment.
At the University of Chicago, the free speech university, talking about Palestine is not free. My diploma doesn't matter when there are people in Palestine and in Gaza that will never walk a stage again.
Important to also note that thousands of students and staff at the University of Chicago have signed a petition with calls for the university to grant the degrees, along with several city council members signing a letter with the very same sentiment. Also happening on the West Coast, at UCLA, reportedly threatening to discipline and withhold degrees from at least 55 students who participated in protests. UCLA administrators pointing to these disciplinary procedures on their website. Also happening at Harvard, more than a dozen students were denied their diplomas just days ago. About 1,000 people walked out of the commencement ceremony, standing in solidarity with those students. Some students telling USA Today that they may not get their degrees until 2026. 2 degrees are also in jeopardy at Princeton University, that's reportedly. And some other schools that have been following suit, Columbia University, Vanderbilt. Also really interesting to point out that a particular student here at the University of Chicago, they said even though they're not getting their degree at this time, they would do it 1,000 times over. Nick?
Wow, Kelsey, that's a tough one to follow. We'll see where it goes, especially as we head into the summer. Kelsey Kernstein at the University of Chicago. Kelsey, thank you. A massive wildfire east of San Francisco is now just about 50% contained. The Corral fire spread across more than 14,000 acres in less than 48 hours after it sparked on Saturday. 2 firefighters were injured by the blaze over the weekend as crews have been working around the clock to contain the fast-moving flames. Evacuation orders are still in place for much of San Joaquin County until at least 6 o'clock tonight. And North Korea claims to have now sent more than 3,000 trash-filled balloons across the border into South Korea over the weekend. Officials in Seoul have collected at least 700 of those balloons so far, containing everything from cigarette butts to dog and animal waste. North Korean officials say the balloons were sent in response to South Korean activists sending anti-Pyongyang propaganda over their border. North Korea says the balloon barrage is over for now, but vows to send more trash sailing south if the propaganda campaign continues. And China's space program has successfully landed a craft on the moon. Chinese scientists plan to use the lander to drill into the moon's surface and collect samples from the largely unexplored far side of the moon. China's exploratory mission comes as China works to put a man on the moon before 2030. NASA is aiming to beat China back to the moon, hoping to get a manned mission to the moon's surface by 2026. And still to come, a data breach impacting Ticketmaster's users could be putting your private data on the dark web. What you need to know after the break.
The virus that causes shingles is sleeping in 99% of people over 50. It's lying dormant, waiting, and could reactivate. Shingles strikes as a painful, blistering rash that can last for weeks, and it could wake at any time. Think you are not at risk for shingles? It's time to wake up, because shingles could wake up in you. If you're over 50, talk to your doctor or pharmacist about shingles prevention.
This bathroom's so musty.
Damprid's new fast-acting drop-in tab attracts and traps excess moisture, eliminating musty odors.
My mental health was better, but uncontrollable movements called TD, tardive dyskinesia, started disrupting my day.
TD felt embarrassing. I felt like disconnecting. I asked my doctor about treating my TD and learned about Ingrezza.
Ingrezza is clinically proven for reducing TD. Most people saw results in just 2 weeks. People taking Ingrezza can stay on most mental health meds. Only #1 prescribed Ingrezza has simple dosing for TD. Always 1 pill once daily. Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Pay close attention to and call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden changes in mood, behaviors, feelings, or have thoughts of suicide. Don't take Ingrezza if you're allergic to its ingredients. Ingrezza may cause serious side effects including angioedema, potential heart rhythm problems, and abnormal movements. Report fevers, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these may be life-threatening. Sleepiness is the most common side effect.
Take control by asking your doctor about Ingrezza.
If anyone has told you that gaining weight, feeling tired, and struggling with nagging digestive and joint issues is just a part of getting older, they are wrong. My name is Dr. Stephen Gundry, and after years of struggling with these same issues, I found a new way to support my health at home by making one simple change to my diet. It's called BioComplete 3. BioComplete 3 works by restoring your gut health from the inside out. This is a major part of how I lost 70 pounds and have kept the weight off for 25 years. It's not just me. This is working for everybody. Joe helped his gut health, and you can see the changes, not just how he looks on the outside, but how much better he felt on the inside.
I was 270. I'm now 140. It just feels amazing. Thank you, Dr. Gundry.
I helped all these people achieve incredible changes to their weight, their digestion, even their skin. And for a limited time, you can try BioComplete 3 risk-free for 90 days. Go to guthealthsecret.com.
Explore the world the Viking way. From the quiet comfort of elegant small ships with no children and no casinos. We actually have reinvented ocean voyages, designing all-inclusive experiences for the thinking person. Viking, voted world's best by both Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler. Learn more at Viking.com.
First, we did the impossible. Then you ate so many of the impossible that we completely ran out. And now, they're back! The footlong cookie is back at Subway.
Welcome back. We have breaking news in the federal gun trial of President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. We now have a statement from President Biden. Let's go live to Joe Khalil, who is outside the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe.
Yeah, there was speculation as to whether or not President Biden was going to show up here in person. He did not, but the First Lady is inside supporting Hunter, as is Ashley Biden, his sister. And now we've got a statement from the president. I'm going to read here directly from it. It says, quote, "I am the president, but I'm also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today." It says Hunter's resilience in the face of adversity and the strength he's brought to his recovery are inspiring to us. A lot of families have loved ones who've overcome addiction and know what we mean. As the president, I don't and won't comment on pending federal cases, but as a dad, I have boundless love for my son, confidence in him, and respect for his strength. Our family has been through a lot together, and Jill and I are going to continue to be there for Hunter and our family with love and support. And Nick, this just highlights the difficult position that President Biden is in. This is his Justice Department that's bringing these charges forward now in this trial against his own son. As he says, he doesn't want to comment on any pending case, but he is a dad, and it appears that he feels that viscerally, that his son now is quite literally facing up to 25 years in prison in the worst case here. So this is a statement that we got from President Biden. I'm not sure whether he's going to be putting anything further out or commenting more on camera or anything like that. But it shows you that this is a family, in addition to being, someone who is commander-in-chief and watching his son go through these trials. It's also an indication, Nick, that Hunter Biden's addiction issues, which have become very public, include some pretty serious and salacious stories that I imagine may be a little embarrassing to the Biden family and to Hunter himself. He is in recovery now, has been for a few years. But those types of stories are certainly going to come out during this trial, and we're going to see how the White House and the Biden campaign handle it.
Joe, that was really powerful. As a dad, I have boundless love for my son, and we will see where things take us. Joe Khalil live in Wilmington, Delaware, outside the federal courthouse where the president's son is sitting now, waiting to be part of a jury selected to try his case. Joe, thank you so much. Ticketmaster has been hit by a massive data breach with hackers stealing customer names, addresses, credit card numbers, and trying to sell that information on the dark web. That information belongs to more than 560 million Ticketmaster customers. Parent company Live Nation disclosed the breach to the SEC, saying a criminal threat actor offered to sell that information. The price tag? Get this. $500,000, according to HackRead, which reports on cybersecurity. The breach came just days before the Justice Department filed an antitrust lawsuit to break up Live Nation and Ticketmaster. I want to bring in Rick Jordan, CEO of Reach Out Technology. Rick, you and I have talked about cybersecurity and data information being stolen and compromised before. Is this data breach Ticketmaster's fault? Could they have done more to protect customer information?
Yeah, I would say it's always the case to where there's multiple parties that need to take responsibility for this. You know, of course, Ticketmaster's saying it's Snowflake, which was their data provider, and that really is where the breach occurred. However, there's also responsibility back and forth with the transmission of that data between the two locations. So yes, absolutely, there's responsibility on both sides. And 560 million, man, that's a lot.
That's a whole lot. That's almost, what was that, everyone who attended Taylor Swift's concert?
Taylor Swift, yeah, right on. I was thinking about that, right? Because they got that lawsuit going too.
But seriously, though, Rick, it doesn't matter if it was the Eras Tour or something small like at the wine cellar here in Chicago. The deal is if you use Ticketmaster, it is possible that your information has been compromised.
For sure, yeah, and there's a list, you know, and I was looking up information about this too. You know, the data set is just absurdly huge. You know, it contains full name, email address, telephone number, credit card numbers. It's hashed, but that's easily broken. You know, so 560 million credit card numbers at least, the credit card type, and also all the user financial transactions. It's pretty huge.
Wow, that is big. Well, Rick, in a situation like this, is there anything people can actually do to protect themselves if they were part of that breach?
I love that you asked this. You know, going back, yes, just determine what credit cards you used and maybe change those cards. It's really easy to report your card lost to whether it's Chase, Bank of America, whoever. And going forward, there's certain banks. Bank of America is one of them. Capital One is another that will actually give you their fake cards, their one-time use card numbers, almost like a pseudonym as a card number, allowing you to use these for different sites online. You can generate just one-time use card numbers when you buy things to like Taylor Swift or, you know, Luke Bryant or whoever else. That way, when something like this happens, it's very easy to just kill that one card number and not have it affect any of your other transactions anywhere else. There's also privacy.com that will do this if you use a credit card from a different bank.
Rick, last question. I've got like 40 seconds here for me. What can you tell us about that group, the hacking group, Shiny Hunters?
Oh, that's an interesting question because they're not actually the group that hacked. They're only the broker, so to speak. They're just the ones that are selling it on the dark web. This actually dates back. I know Ticketmaster's like, hey, May 20th, we noticed some unauthorized activity. There's a group, VX-Underground on Twitter that I follow that analyzes all these things. They have been in their system since April, around mid-April. So it was really only about May when they finally determined, oh, there's somebody in here that shouldn't be. And this is very typical of these kinds of breaches. Typically, the bad actors, as they called it, have been on for months or more before they actually take the data.
Rick Jordan, I love that takeaway information for our viewers. So use a dummy card, the one-time use card, anytime you're making purchases like that. Rick Jordan, thank you so much. WNBA refs are upgrading a foul call to a flagrant one after Caitlin Clark was hard hit by Chicago Sky's Chennedy Carter. Carter blindsided Clark and shoulder checked her in the third quarter. Fever head coach Christy Sides saying the move was unacceptable. Another team leader saying the targeting of Caitlin Clark by other teams needs to stop. Sky player Angel Reese facing criticism online for her response to the incident on the court. She appeared to celebrate just moments after Carter made contact with Clark, though it's unclear what she was celebrating. Reese did not make herself available to reporters after the game, resulting in her facing a $1,000 fine. The Chicago Sky was fined $5,000 for that violation. And commemorations are underway 80 years after D-Day took place during World War II. A closer look coming up on NewsNation Live. Plus, we're just moments away from Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying on COVID-19 on Capitol Hill. We'll bring you that live as soon as it begins. You're watching NewsNation Live.
NewsNation tonight on Balance. The one and only Bill O'Reilly weighs in on the historic verdict. What comes next, and what are most of the national media getting wrong? O'Reilly breaks it down with Leland on Balance. Tonight, only on NewsNation.
GA, the advanced form of dry age-related macular degeneration, can irreversibly damage your vision. It can progress faster than you think. When GA threatens your eyes, take a stand. Slow GA with Syfovre. Syfovre is an eye injection that was proven to slow damaging lesion growth over 2 years with increasing effect over time. It's the only FDA-approved treatment to slow GA in as few as 6 doses per year.
Don't take Syfovre if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye that may include pain and redness. Syfovre can cause serious side effects, such as eye infection and retinal detachments, severe inflammation of vessels in the retina, which may result in severe vision loss, wet AMD, eye inflammation, and an increase in eye pressure. Most common side effects are eye discomfort, wet AMD, small specks floating in vision, and blood in the white of the eye. Tell your doctor right away if you have any side effects.
Every moment counts. Act now to slow GA with Syfovre. Ask your retina specialist about Syfovre.
When your vehicle is broken, you can't go here, or go get those, or even do this. And face it, breakdowns will happen, and they can cost you thousands you can't afford. So how do you cover the skyrocketing cost of auto repairs? Easy. Everything Breaks is a new kind of auto protection plan. While other plans can cost you $150 a month, Everything Breaks covers you for as little as $1 a day. Why not get a free instant quote right now? Call 1-800-276-4857. You also get free roadside assistance, free towing, and free rental cars. Plus, unlike other providers, your savings start on day one. Call now for a free quote to join the growing crowd saving thousands on repairs. Call 1-800-276-4857. 1-800-276-4857.
Get it all covered your way, 'cause everything breaks.
All eyes on me, brand new drip is what they see. It's diamonds on my teeth, brand new whip is what they see.
In my bag like a bunch of groceries, all this cheese and greens just come to me.
Freedom you can't take your eyes off. The new 2024 Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator. Jeep, there's only one.
Top off this Memorial Day with $2,000 bonus cash allowance on 2024 Jeep Wrangler gas-powered models and Jeep Gladiator. Stop by your local dealer for a test drive and experience open-air freedom today.
I received a call from a Life Alert dispatcher. He told me that my mom activated the Life Alert and she was having chest pain, and he had dispatched the paramedics out to the house. 70% of the people with the same type of blockage that my mom had in her heart die. But because Life Alert acted quickly, the paramedics were able to get to my mom. She was able to get immediate medical attention, and her life was saved.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast. The most trusted name in emergency response services.
For information or a free brochure, call 800-818-4649. 800-818-4649. 800-818-4649.
Welcome back. President Biden is slated to meet with French President Emmanuel Macron next week. The visit will fall on June 8th, just 2 days after the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Both leaders are expected to focus on their unwavering support for Ukraine amid the Russian invasion. They'll also discuss ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation on economic, space, and nuclear issues. This marks Mr. Biden's first state visit to France and is expected to attend a commemorative D-Day event while in France. The week of commemorations have already kicked off with parachuters jumping from World War II-era planes into Normandy. C-47s dropped 70 total jumpers dressed in World War II-style uniforms. The purpose of these ceremonies serves as a reminder to current generations now seeing war again in Europe that war is hell. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is among those expected to attend D-Day events. And thousands of American service members are either buried or remembered at the Normandy American Cemetery just yards away from where the invasion happened. Every year, about 2 million people from around the world visit to learn about those veterans and pay their respects. Maria Elena Borealis, with our NewsNation affiliate in Virginia, has more.
9,338. That's how many people are buried within the hallowed grounds of the Normandy American Cemetery.
This cemetery commemorates the sacrifice of an entire young generation, but also the sacrifice of all those families, because they were all the son or the brother of someone. Many of them just got a child before they left home. Many of them just got married before they left home. They were husbands, parents, but they were all part of family.
Marble crosses mark most of the graves within the cemetery, but in recent years, there's been an effort to acknowledge the soldiers of Jewish heritage who hid their religion during and after the war. The cemetery made a promise to change their grave markers at the request of their families.
We're still honoring this promise.
Now there are 152 Stars of David in Normandy American Cemetery. There are 45 sets of brothers who are buried in the cemetery, including 33 who are buried side by side. That includes 2 sons of President Theodore Roosevelt, Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr. and Lieutenant Quentin Roosevelt, who's the only World War I aviator buried in Normandy. When family members visit the grave of their loved one, cemetery officials perform a sand ceremony as a way to honor that soldier.
We take some sand coming from Omaha Beach and we put it to highlight the name of the service member.
Within this sacred place is also a memorial with a semicircular garden. More than 1,500 names of the missing are inscribed on the wall.
In this cemetery are buried more than 300 people, but we don't know their names. Their names are inscribed on the wall of the missing.
Rosettes mark the names of those since recovered and identified, a way to always remember those who fought and died on the beaches of Normandy.
And to each of those service members, we salute you and we thank you for your service. Our thanks to Maria Elena Borealis for that story. Thank you so much. Well, coming up, this is a live look at the House committee hearing where Dr. Anthony Fauci will be testifying on COVID-19 very shortly. We'll bring that to you live as soon as it begins. And you can now take NewsNation with you on the go. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download our app. You'll never miss breaking news, exclusive reporting, and you can watch our network right now on your phone.